Welcome to the 2020 Ducati Panigale V2. This is an amazing V-twin superbike. Let's hear about why it might be the very best V-twin Ducati has ever put in a superbike. Coming at you right now. I got my red Ducati, I got my red Ducati shirt, so let's start out with some stats. First up, a 955cc Ducati V-twin, pumping out 155 horsepower, 76 foot-pounds of torque, and this little beauty weighs 440 pounds. So you've got the combination of all the good parts that Ducati has to offer. Now, let's understand a little bit why, first off, it's different from its predecessor, the Panigale 959. Let's get into this. All right, folks, I hate to say it like this, but this is the brand new 2020. And if you just purchased and are making payments on a 2019 959, I have to tell you, Ducati just played you. No other ways about it, all right? This thing is just about better in every single measurable way. Let's understand the differences between the 959 and the Panigale V2. First off, the styling. Basically everything ripped off of a V4, except this is a V-twin in here, so it is thinner. The bodywork fits very tight, but you have the new nose, you have the headlights, you have the sleek look, you have this extra panel that just looks fantastic. Between the tank, thinner, shaped a little bit better, and that tail section, absolutely amazing. You get a longer seat, so the rear of this bike, where you put your butt, is a whole lot more roomy and comfortable. The bodywork fits real tight to the frame, or lack thereof. It really fits real tight to the little bit of subframe in the front, little bit of subframe in the back, and the engine. Super, super thin feeling in between your legs. You get the brand new dashboard and electronics suite from the new V4. And anybody who's ridden that or read about that or Googled that or watched a YouTube video on that, you know that it is top shelf. You have a 6-axis IMU. You have all of the rider modes, race, sport, and street. You don't have rain mode. If you're going to ride it in the rain, we recommend street mode. That's just fine. The 6-axis IMU is super easy to use as far as the interface with the dashboard. Super simple, super intuitive, which is very unlike a Ducati. The ones that I've been playing with before, a little bit complicated, not as easy to use. You got to kind of look at the manual and Google something before it works. This, super simple, push button up and down, cakewalk. BMW, look out. The system on these super bikes, if as soon as that trickles down to the rest of them, they got something for you. After that, the suspension is upgraded. You have big piston show of forks in the front, the 43 mil ones, the nice ones, fully adjustable, screwdriver at the top. You have to kind of know a little bit about what you're doing. It's not as easy as the push button system on the S model of the V4, but I personally like analog suspension's better. As far as I'm concerned, it's one less thing that can break. So the less things that are moving and shaking in your bike, kind of the better for me. Let the electronics talk to the engine and the wheels. Let me deal with the suspension. And in the rear, you have this amazing system. It's kind of cocked funny. It's lifted up 2 mils higher than the old bike, which definitely helps the geometry steering in and out of corners. And also on top of that, you have a 180/60 rear tire, which again bumps the butt up just that little 2 mil, so probably 4 or 5 mil total, puts the rake of the bike exactly where you want it for a super smooth feel. After that, a quick shifter and an auto blipper. The 959 didn't have all that fun stuff. The new IMU lets everything talk to everything. Between the traction control, the cornering ABS, you got it all on this bad boy. The new tail section, I think the lights look great. Whether this is behind you in your rear view mirror or you're chasing it down the street, which is much more likely, the tail looks great. You can always tell when you're braking. The blinkers look super cool. Remix, super cool. But you do have that goofy little thing coming off the back with the blinkers and the license plate. Definitely need a tidy tail. I already opened it up. 4 little bolts, pop that right off and get yourself a sleek looking machine. The ergonomics are way better on this machine. I actually rode an 899, the original of this bike, on track. Here's a picture. And it was great, but it was miserable. It was super uncomfortable. Your feet were all cramped up into your neck. The handlebars were tight together. These are super wide, and thank you Ducati for making race bikes totally adjustable. 1 bolt, you can swing them in and out. So if you want a wider grip or if you want it in a little bit closer, however you're comfortable, me personally, I like them out wide. Give me that extra leverage while I'm switching around through corners, which we'll get to why this thing does that great. But the pegs are further away from the seat. You get a thicker seat. It's 4 mils thicker than the other one. So you're up higher, between the butt being higher, the suspension being higher. Very commanding, yet comfortable position while you're riding. You get it all. Ducati, thank you so much. Moving along. Like we said, my 959 guys, sucks to suck. But all my new guys who get the V-twin, let me tell you a little bit about my personal riding impressions. This thing is wonderful. First thing you're going to notice is how thin it is. You do have a V2 between your legs, so the engine's super tight, the frame is super tight, the gas can is super tight. If it was me, I would put some tank grips on here just so I didn't slide back and forth so much. As we know, the seat's a little bit bigger. Maneuverability, those wide handlebars, that's when it comes in handy. You press either direction, this thing flicks side to side, absolutely effortless and intuitive handling. You feel comfortable on it. It feels just like a superbike should without scaring the hell out of you like you do on the V4. You get this incredible high revving engine. Now, let me just be clear. In traffic, it's a puppy. I used to own an 1198. Twin that came out before this, and boy, through traffic, you're feathering the clutch, it's jerking back and forth, super uneasy, super unhappy at low speeds. But all of a sudden then you get on this, and now my 1198 maybe had 165 horsepower and this has 155 horsepower. So 10 horsepower difference shouldn't be the difference between it bucking and this thing being super smooth and easy to control at low speeds. Put my hand on my hip, just feather the throttle. Very, very comfortable, very easy, and I was thrilled to have that happen. Hated getting stuck in traffic, but wasn't nearly the miserable experience that I thought it was going to be. The gearbox is silky. One of the best transmissions that I felt ever. Up through the gears, no problem. Down through the gears, no problem. It's a very quick and high revving engine. It blinks right in your face when you're supposed to shift, and as soon as you roll off, boom, 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 those engine revs match flawlessly. Ducati, you guys did an amazing job tuning this bike for the engine and the TC and all different kinds of riding positions. The tip-in is excellent. The comfort is excellent. Not once did I feel cramped or weird on it. It never made my shoulders feel funny. I got a good 100 miles in on this thing. Effortless. It sounds wonderful. That little tiny exhaust, I mean, real life, I would still get rid of it. But it sounds just the way it's supposed to. Matter of fact, here's a little sound clip. The music of my people. But the engine is not scary, it's not intimidating. Whacking that throttle open doesn't scare you. The 155 horsepower is super linear, so if you do change the exhaust, make sure you tune it because this thing is meant to be the way it is, and it is fantastic. After that, it's just so rewarding. You're still on this gorgeous Ducati. V2, V4, let me tell you the truth, the average person driving in the car next to you is not going to be able to tell the difference. Even most other bikers came right up to us and they were like, wow, that thing is beautiful, which clearly it is. Moving along. A quick shout out to all my track guys. Me personally, I would buy this. It's an absolutely wonderful street bike, but really it's going to be most at home on a racetrack. So let's talk a little bit about what you would do to make it a track bike. There's no sense in being a race bike. It's a 955. There's really no race class. You'd be in the open super sport, so you'd be up against other thousands, or open super bike rather, so you'd be against thousands. This is technically almost a 1,000cc bike, but you just don't have the power of modern thousands, but you do have more than a modern 600, so there's really no place for it in a amateur race group. But my track day guys, it's amazing. So things you would do to get this ready for the track: cover the lights up. That's it. There's nothing that you really have to do, that you have to do, all right? You get this just as it is. It is a perfectly capable track bike. Cover up the lights, take off the tail, take off the rear view mirrors, and you're ready to go. This thing is awesome. Make sure you have insurance. I wouldn't drop it. We'll get to the engine is still a stress member. So other than that, this thing rocks. But if you are going to make this a very serious track day bike, first things, I would respring the front. It's a little soft for any kind of aggressive braking. You might have to put a new shock in the side, but it's totally adequate the way it is. Just play with those little knobs, get it all the way up to a mid-level, even a beginner A group rider. This thing is ready to go. After that, definitely new tires. Ducati, I don't know why you keep putting Rosso 2s on superbikes, but they did it again. I would definitely get either some super courses or have a second set of wheels so that you can have your track day slicks and some warmers on versus these Rosso 2s. You're going to get great mileage out of them, but they're not going to heat up as quick or get as sticky as a Super Corsa or a Pirelli slick. After that, this bike is Euro 5 compliant, which in the United States means neutered and has tons of hidden horsepower. So the option for you guys is get rid of that big thick cat, redo the exhaust, retune it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a 10 or 15 horsepower jump hidden inside this engine. And anybody out there, you know, if you got an under a liter bike and you get to pass a liter bike pulling onto a straight because you can carry the corner speed and then rip them with an extra 15 horsepower, boy, this thing would be absolute magic. Just so everybody knows, though, it does kick off a bunch of heat, which is cool when it's cool out, but 100-degree track day, boiling on a track, letting it sit too long turned on, you're going to cook a little bit. Just fair warning to all my guys out there in full leather suits, this thing definitely throws its warmth out there. Let's go on to the cons. Now, at some point, we already touched on all of the different cons about this bike. First up, and the one that I love-hate, is the engine is a stress member. You have a little tiny subframe in the front, a little tiny subframe in the back, and holding on to a good bulk of this weight and steering is the actual engine, which, as far as weight savings, handling, and making it super lean and skinny, is a bad thing if you drop it, okay? So what happens is you knock this bike over, you don't bend the frame or dink the frame, you crack the damn engine, okay? It's just a little bit tricky. Like I said, make sure you have insurance. Whatever. It's a Ducati. That's the way they roll, and that's what you got to deal with. Part of the game. After that, we have M4 caliper brakes in the front. Now, Ducati came out with that new Stylema that they're using. They also put M50s on all of the big bikes. Now, this is smaller. Obviously, you're not going to be carrying the same speed down a straight that you would on the bigger bike. So, do you need the big M50s? No. Would I like them anyway, especially at this price point and at this level of exotica? Absolutely. I mean, you got to save some cash somewhere, Ducati, so I understand, but I certainly would love to have my big monoblocks on there. Again, we talked about the Rosso 2s. I would switch them, but if you're going to use this as a street bike, it really doesn't matter anyway. You'll probably get more miles out of those. Now, the tank is super slick and slippery. The paint is a little bit higher quality than the 959 was. You do have a little bit thicker coat, and you definitely have a clear coat on top, which is great. Won't chip nearly as bad. but it's super slick. I would definitely throw some Tech-Spec tank pads on here, stop me from sliding back and forth, and give me a little bit thicker where I could grip onto it with my legs a little bit, especially through steering. Now, in my opinion, one of the worst parts is it's still a Ducati V-twin. You do have belts inside. The belts are attached to the crank, so it has a belt drive rather than a gear drive on the inside. And anybody who's owned a Ducati for years and years know after whatever it is, 7,000 miles, you got to get the belts tightened or most likely replaced. It's a little bit costly. I guess if you do it fast enough, you can catch it under a warranty maybe, but I would rather have a gear system on the inside than a belt system. Just talking me personally. Then we have the exhaust where it does sound great. It's a little chunky, and anything that's Euro 5 compliant is definitely code word for neutered. So who knows what this thing is capable with the engine off, with the exhaust off. And last but not least, this thing cost $16,500, which for a Ducati, it's one of the least expensive ones you can get. But the rub is what it's up against. Now for $16,500, you can get a leftover R1, an 1819, which has very similar electronics and obviously more power. Now, why pick this? Ducati is why. Because this is a super bike that says Ducati, it's red, it's loud, it's exciting, it's exotic, it's rare, especially because we can't ship that many into the country because Ducati was just opened up yesterday or something like that. But this thing is magic. It makes you feel cool, it handles fantastic, the intuitive riding style that it provides you, it's just wonderful. That little bit of Ducati specialness. For $16,500, it's definitely worth every penny in my small opinion. Folks, Matty Motorcycle here. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of the Panigale V2. I will see you out there on track with this thing ASAP. Folks, like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you want to see next. See you soon.